Well, you do have a unique seat in that you see America as it probably really is. You get that cross
Yeah, we
section
get
every night.
everybody, even
Yeah, I didn't
Louisiana.
even think
Even
about.
Louisiana comes. I said show and tell with liquor. That's what I am. You go to a comedy club and I got
Sponsored by
shit
Crown.
to
Is that
show
why
you.
that's part of the
Yeah,
show?
yeah, kind of.
You're naked, you're
Yeah,
jacked, and there's just a carrot.
just a carrot. Top this. That's the name of the special right there. There you go. Top this.
I spent about 2 hours this morning sort of deep diving into your life, so
Oh,
it was intense at like 6:30 a.m.
yeah, because you had a show.
I'm in your world. Yeah, I had a show last
Yeah,
night.
we had a show. It was. I was
How'd
thinking
your show
about,
go?
Great crowd last night. It was like one of those just we call it road show, which is weird because we're on the road. But when you ever have a road show, they're always just they had
Just more
carrot
like
top shirts on.
yeah,
and
yeah, like a vibe.
True
Yeah.
fans and a meet and greet. A whole bunch of just
Yeah.
and I had my brother, my cousin there. It was about 4 or 5 comedians because they were in town for that comedy festival. So. It's fun working in front of your peers. And
Yeah.
I tell Matt, it's the worst thing in the world when you have to do a show in front of like other comics,
Yeah.
because all you think about the whole time is they're judging me.
Yeah. Actually, I have a bit in there about being judged by comedians.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
That's good.
The other night when we were playing somewhere, Josh Freese, the great drummer who's
Yeah.
recently been playing with Foo Fighters, was on the side of the stage. And Jimmy Chamberlain, at about the third song, kind of goes into a little bit of a drum solo. And I looked at Jack, the bass player, and I was like, here we go. Because
yeah.
there's a great drummer on the side of the stage. So you're going to get A-level.
Yeah, literally. Jeez, yeah, nothing worse, right?
So when you're working in front of other comedians,
Yep.
you must get that heightened sense of like,
You do, yeah. Or any other performer.
that throw you off a
Even
bit?
I don't know if it throws. Now I'm an old bastard, but like I try to get
You
into.
say you're an old bastard?
Yeah, I am. I'm older than you. So I'm older, but I've
Not
gotten
much.
better, calmed down, and performing at any level of who's out there. As when Queen came or Rod Stewart, Elton John, whoever comes to show, you're like, oh man. If you ever think it, you kind of I don't know. It's just so I just do my show. Don't think about who's out there, and then it usually works out for the best.
But isn't it funny, like, obviously I'm not doing bits, but, you do something, like, for my case, it'd be something on the guitar, and you're thinking, I bet Rod Stewart thought that was good.
Yeah.
You do that weird,
No,
like-
last night I had a bunch of comics in the room, and I did. I mean, I did it was a couple of really good stand-up jokes. It wasn't a prop. One was a good prop. It was a brand new, P. Diddy joke, and it just leveled. But and there was just one in particular, like a stand-up joke. And I could hear them, comics always, that's how comics laugh, right? They don't laugh.
How do they laugh?
just go, That's how comics.
They don't really laugh.
No. Okay.
Is it a recognition?
If I ever
is it a
say-
recognition? Kind
No,
of,
yeah. Any comic, because they always go, and then that means they liked it, and that means they're probably gonna steal it from me. No, most comics don't like if you do like Jay Leno or Bill Maher or anybody you do a thing to. Now Bill Maher will laugh because he's stoned. He's out of his mind high as a kite. So he's a good audience. He'll laugh at it. But Howie would be like, they just, Jay Leno, I'd say something like,
So you're triggering a memory because I once got in a fight with Jerry Seinfeld over professional wrestling.
Oh no.
I was at a private dinner. It was Gwyneth Paltrow, Jerry Seinfeld, and some other people. And, it's just one of those New York dinners where you're just next to somebody who isn't necessarily interested in you, but they know you're famous. And, of course, I know who Jerry Seinfeld is.
Right.
So at some point, somebody brought up my interest in professional wrestling. And he goes, why are you into professional wrestling? And we got in this argument at the table over it. And I basically bested
Punched him.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not a wallflower, and I have some level of verbal acumen, and I basically kind of, I for lack of a better word, I ran circles around him because he thought his take on wrestling was very like the typical American version,
Right.
and I gave a very historical kind of
Right.
rendering of the whole thing. So fast forward, I'm at the Indy 500. I got the pit pass. I'm all important. I'm walking, and here comes Jerry Seinfeld, and he looks at me, and goes, like guys like you back here, huh?
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you
maybe
said
that trigger
yeah.
Yeah, usually they just laugh. They comedy says, but that's in the back of the room at a comedy club. You just hear, because that's comics laughing. Because people, I'd say to me like, that was funny. I said, no, or you say, oh, that's funny, and they say, we didn't laugh. I'm like, no, that's how I laugh. That's funny. Like,
So, full disclosure.
but I laugh. I used to watch George Carlin on the plane. And
Were you
I
laughing
was
out loud?
laughing out loud when my head. I was Jesus. I mean, it was a great bit. You ever notice how many stupid people there are on the planet? I mean, stupid people. and it just goes on. You can sit there and you look, you start talking to the guy, and you're like, this guy's stupid. Yeah, just how he does it. It's just
Yeah.
brilliant. And then there's people that are full of shit. And he does that whole, he looks into it for a minute, and all of a sudden you just go, this guy's full of shit. And it's just a brilliant bit. It's just brilliant.
So he got a laugh.
Yeah, he got a laugh. Yeah, I didn't go, I was like,
I was going to ask you this later, but I'm going to ask you it now.
Okay.
So, to your point, is I've known a few professional comedians in my life, and I like to think I'm a little funny, but
You are funny.
well, thank you, professionally endorsed. But the thing is when you make a joke around a professional comedian, they tend not to laugh.
Yes, it's true.
your
Well,
point.
well, right.
Because I made one joke to you the other day, and you went like
No, I was probably thinking when you did it. I said, I'm thinking.
it's a good bit.
Yeah. I usually, honestly, I'm not a joke. I think comics never really enjoy anything. They observe and then they write it down as soon as they can write
Well,
it down.
there is that rep that most comedians are miserable, and they use comedy as some way to
See,
interface
I'm
with the
definitely
world.
not
I'm not
that-
asking
No,
you
but
that
I mean,
question.
I
don't
have-
see you that way.
Oh, I'm not though. But there are friends, a lot of friends of mine that are miserable people. They are. And there was funny you say Seinfeld. There was a thing just literally last night on him and Jim Gaffigan were on a little panel thing, and he was talking exactly about that. He said, "My kids ask me all the time, does anything make you happy?" Because he's just, at Seinfeld, and he's with his kids, and he said it was in the car, and the couple didn't work. He's just cranky. He wants to go. Do you really like your job? And so, yeah, I don't know. I've never had that issue. When Robin Williams passed away, everyone in the world reached out to me, like everyone, like
To get your
to
comment?
get my to not only get my did I know him, but they wanted to know, are all comedians sad and
Oh,
miserable
because of the
people
way he
because of
took
what
his life,
right?
yeah.
And I said no, everyone's different, and he was also battling some health issues. So it wasn't. He had a lot of things going on. I had met him, and he was very, very sweet and very funny and very everything. But no, not every comic is a miserable. People say that probably about musicians too. Are they ever in a good? They're on stage. They're not nice off stage. I don't know. There's a persona with every kind of people.
Well, if there's a commonality with musicians, is that they're sociopaths. So I don't. Is there a common?
I think there might be a
trait to-
There probably
to-
comics. Yeah, absolutely. There's some psychological thing. I mean,
is there a word for it?
yeah, we're just nuts. But it's like. But you're right. Comics are always just thinking a bit. No matter what is happening in a comics day, from lunch to end to whatever, he's thinking of a
Bits.
bit,
Okay.
and that's true for any comic.
So I thought to start here. In personal life, do you prefer to be called Scott or Carrot Top?
I like Queen Latifah, but it's been taken.
Why do I feel you used that bit before?
I don't know. Was it too good?
It was too good. It was
too
a little
quick.
too-
It was
the
too
timing
rehearsed.
was a little
It was
too
too rehearsed.
crisp.
It was too crisp. I love Scott, and now that I've been Scott my whole life, but I remember, before the internet and all that, like Scott, and then I got, I put Scott Thompson, and there was a Scott Thompson Kids of the Hall, Scott
Right.
Thompson. And I said, well, I knew him, but I said also I can't be Scott Thompson. That's not a show business. So I came, hey, just Carrot Top came out of the, so
You could have done the thing where they add an initial, like
yes,
Scott L.
it's
Thompson.
Scott C. I'm Scott Christopher Thompson. I could have, but for some reason I was thinking like a brand and a thing. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be something like I always thought the Rolling Stones' tongue and the Grateful Dead Steelers. I wanted to be like, literally like a brand. And I thought Carrot Top. I don't know if it's Carrot Top. I did it, and one of my favorite things ever happened with being as a brand and what you call it. I was on an airplane, and we boarded the middle. So when I came up to sit down, the guy in front of me was already sitting, and there was this. All I saw was this big thing of hair and a ball cap, and for I don't know, it was just an hour flight. I literally kept saying, "That looks like Stephen Wright," just the back of his head. I didn't know what. That looks like Stephen Wright. And we land, and bong, and he gets up, and he looks right at me. I go, Jesus Christ. I said, I thought that was you from, I could even know what you look from the back of your head. And he just kind of, he's beyond one of my favorite people as far as comic.
He was funny.
He's still good. And I just said, oh my God, and he goes, hey, how are you? And he's just like that in real life. And it's not a character. So he said, hey, what do you have a show here? And I said, yeah. He says, yeah, I have a show here too. And I said, you want to grab a cup of coffee or a drink or a bite to eat? And he said, I'd love that. Where are you playing? I'm at the MGM Grand. And he said, you're under, is it, what, Scott? I said, Scott Thompson. He goes, yeah. I said, but I'm under an alias. And he said, "You are an alias." It's brilliant. He said, what, I just call your room? And I said, yeah, but I'm under an alias. And he says, you are an alias. And I said, I am an alias. Like, that was so, and he was quick. He didn't rehearse that. He's
See?
brilliant, brilliant mind. So, but that's
Okay.
because the internet would, they put out Scott Thompson, and I'm like, oh, people are going to go look up Scott Thompson. So I just checked in under, the old joke is I check under use and no one would bother me. No one called me. That's the old joke.
Okay. Here's where we get theoretical.
Okay.
I guarantee you no one's ever taking you down this
Oh,
particular path.
shit. Here we go.
Well, see, you're a comedian. You can joke your way out of whatever I ask
Yeah.
you, you see.
All right.
Are you familiar with the, in the world of symbols and avatars and mythological characters, are you aware of the Harlequin character or the Perrault character?
Harlequin, yeah.
Yeah. To me, it took me a hot second because we just met recently, but I think that's your archetype. And I think that's where people don't understand, let's call it the real brilliance of your comedy. People tend to go to the easy part. So when they sort of throw out, oh, he's a prop comedian, which to me sounds like a weird slur. I don't know enough about comedy, but I feel like you're way more than that
Well,
guy.
Well, I am, and I appreciate. But what's funny is I've never been offended really by when someone says a prop comic until if they deny or describe it that particular way, like you're saying. So we had a comics. I told you last night we had some comics at the show, and it was literally the first thing out of this guy's mouth is like, "Holy." You don't even do like I do props. You saw the show, but I do it about 40 minutes out of the hour and something, maybe more than that now. It's just stand up, pure stand up. I don't grab a prop for over 40 minutes. And I just do like stand up and stories, and he was just blown away. He says, "I've never seen you that side of you."
But
And
you know what?
anyone that
Sorry, but I think part of that is when I saw you a lot on TV. When you were on TV a lot, well, you had 3 minutes.
That's exactly right.
So it was a lot of like.
I would beg them to let me do a story, and they said, "No, you're Carrot Top. You got to do the stuff."
So when I saw you the other night in Vegas, I didn't know you had this other gear because I'd never seen it.
Right, right.
So I was like, holy.
Yeah, there is a whole other
Mother of
side.
God, this guy's funny. Because to me, bits are bits.
Sure.
It's like there's a cleverness to it. In music, we call it gags. Like, I'm the guy who does this gag or whatever.
Right, sure,
and I'm not saying Eddie Van Halen. I'm saying, there's people have gags.
Right, sure.
People like in free market capitalist societies, they look for an advantage. I'm the guy who, I stand on my head and play the guitar or whatever.
Right, exactly.
So in my innocence, I thought that was your thing.
Right.
You were that guy. Gallagher was one of your heroes, and we'll talk about him in a second. But, I saw enough of him on PBS or wherever they would show him, where I knew he was more than the guy who just smashed a watermelon. You knew he was a funny guy.
Indeed. I've been trying really, really hard now that I'm in this stage of my career to put out something, whether it be a documentary style or even doing these shows like these podcasts, is to show the other side because
I literally have a note here that you should do a documentary.
Yeah, we're talking about it, and
seriously
talking about it. Absolutely. Yes.
I want to be in your documentary.
Oh, you will be. I'm not making this.
Maybe
up.
I can even write a theme song or something.
Yeah.
How
about that?
How's your singing voice?
Unbelievable.
Auto tune. We'll get there.
I can do like country, and I'll sing country songs. People are like, "Damn, you're a pretty good singer." I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm just doing I do the dope V's voice and do the thing, but I don't have a voice, no." But every comic can sing to a degree, right?
Okay.
Like you have to sing to a degree, right? Every comic will do which brings me up. I should tell you. I can tell you something about musical like Gene Simmons. So, I met Gene many years ago, and I believe when I was at the porn convention, I was a presenter.
You didn't want to be there, but
I didn't, and I really didn't. And it said, best.
How do I know it's called the AVNs?
AVN, yes, right. Because you creep too. So it's the AVNs. I go up there and I'm literally presenting.
Sorry,
and you know who I.
The joke is still.
You know who I bring. And who I bring up is I did cocaine. I did cocaine on a plane. Was the band. That's a big hit. I did cocaine on a plane. You know him. The guy weighs 80 pounds. I'm standing. I'm like, oh my God. I bring him up. And then they they do the song. They bring me up, and I do my bit, and I literally said, best anal, Susan, and the family's like, oh my God, we're so proud of you, our daughter. And I was like, this is like real, right? And they seriously, and I'm like, God, we're so proud of our daughter. She's got best anal, and I'm making kind of a joke about it, and then Gene Simmons comes by and he's like, he says, they were filming his show, and he says, you are very funny. I like, because I don't know, and I said, do you have a show tonight? And I said, yeah. And he says, do you mind if I come? And I said, no. How many you want to come? He's like, I have my crew. And I said, well, I don't. We're not gonna be able to get the whole crew. Couldn't they film? And I said, well, I don't know. I asked my people. I said, Gene Simmons wants to film the show, and I had a whole Kiss bit in the show, which he wasn't aware of. And it was like all the Kiss heads on these spring heads, and it was a great bit. And so he comes, and he just becomes best friends. And becomes backstage. We're having the best time in the world, and he says, you were like, brilliant. And I said, oh, well, he says, no, I never would guess, like, you're actually, your show was, and he said, what do you do besides comedy to make money? And I'm thinking to himself, like, he knows, no, I do this for like a living, like this is my full-time job, like. So I said, I work, I do like weekends at Subway and something. He goes, no, I know, like I have a residency, like this is what I do. I don't do another job. And he said, no, I mean like to make money. Like, do you have any of your fingers in it? Like me, like I am indie. And I said, yeah, the money symbol, I own that. And I said, oh my God, well, I don't have that. I don't have any of that. He says, see, you need to give him something that you can make money when you're not doing this.
So he's talking into branding.
Right, and he said, well, he loved the fact that he says, you were brilliant, your brand, it's a carrot top, you have a logo, and you are a brand. So I just said to him, well, I make money, not a lot of money, but I said when I made a jingle, and I made a lot of money but kind of for a couple of years, but I still get checks for it, but it was just a dumb thing. It was a contest, and it was for a deodorant, and my buddy and he has a guitar and a piano, and it's true, it was in Florida, and they were asking for people to come up with a jingle, like a Barry Manilow did for Band-Aids or something, right? So we came up by Menon. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, we just sent it in and we won. We won the thing. It was like, by Menon. And they paid me for, I don't know, I still get checks or whatever. He said, how the hell did you come up with that? And I said, I don't know. It's just like you come up with the song. They had the brand and we just said, by Menon. And he's like, that's unbelievable. And I said, and then one other thing I did was with certs. They had something they were trying to, and I'm a marketing major, so they were trying to come up with a way to rebrand certs. And I said, why don't they come up with some stupid thing like now with Retsin? And he said, you're with me, right? And I said, no. Yeah. I can't do Gene's thing.
He sat in that very chair.
You're with me, yes? And I said, yes. And he goes, okay. But the by Menon. I said, no, the whole thing's bullshit. I had him for 25 minutes thinking that I came up with by Menon and searched the Retsin, and I mean 20 minutes. He was literally like, you are brilliant. How did you come up with that thing?
But I'm not being facetious. Well, what's the point of that story?
Because I had him he would f with me so much that I just had him like, I'm going to get him back, and I'm going to think that I'm this brilliant guy that came up with by Menon, and he wanted to like be like a business partner with me.
Well,
he
what's
thought
that
I was
story
genius.
say about you, I guess?
Oh, because I'm just being a I was just, my crew's back there like, what are you doing? I'm like, just play along with it, And I'm not normally that kind of guy, but but he's just that, he's that kind of, he would put salt in my drink when I'm not looking and just think it's hilarious,
He is a child.
Yes.
Back to my point.
Yes.
You as Harlequin.
Yes.
The illumination in my mind was, here's a person who's very funny, but isn't caustic. I think your comedy, and you even say during your show, I just want people to have a good time. Am I paraphrasing that right?
No.
You just want to make people laugh, but you're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings.
Absolutely. I try to send that message to the whole show.
You say some things in your show that are sort of positive, like, hey, let's just.
Yeah, and it's all about love, and it really is. I mean, and I pick on including myself more than anyone else in the show, which is funny. When people watch the show, they see the self-deprecation part of it, which is every comic,
Sure.
That's what makes you funny. Last night the comic came back. He said, "I love the Star Search bit," and he said, "That was so funny. I thought you'd won it." And I said, "Well, why would I play it if I won it? It wouldn't be funny in the show if I said, hey, now watch me when I win Star Search." And they're like, "What's the punchline to it?" What's funny is I lost.
But I guess where the Harlequin thing kicked in is your self-image, the way you dress. I'm not saying it's conscious or unconscious, but I'm saying you've sort of turned yourself into a Harlequin by character.
Yes.
And I think where it's hard for us to understand in American culture is it's sort of an not outmoded character, but it's not a character that's readily present in our culture. Does that land on an intellectual
Yeah,
level?
sure.
See, this is where you go, oh.
No, it's playful. It's playful. It's fun. It's
Okay,
artsy.
good.
It's yeah, and it's unique in a sense that like it fits my whole act. Like my act, I go back to my first show, first show on television. I was already that. I had my
Right,
crazy
and
hair and rainbows and everything, and it was like 1985, and people are like, wow, you like I've always stayed the same, but the show's changed and evolved, and I've changed and evolved, and
sure.
to a degree. But yes,
The reason I'm after this is because part of the reason I want to do a show like this is I really want to understand what makes people tick, because I like the connection between, let's call it, a critical self-awareness, even if it's intuitive, leading to success.
yeah.
And then even when there isn't success, how that character sort of navigates. And in your case, I think it's really interesting because I feel like in trying to do research to interview you, and the lazy version would be to do the greatest hits like people do with me. But I found there wasn't a lot of information about, let's call it, your inner life. And I'm not saying that you want to talk about it at great length, but I think it's fascinating that someone who's been as successful as you have been, and as successful as long as you've been successful, which is really impressive, there's not a lot of information about sort of your inner world. Is that purposeful, or you think people just don't get it?
A little bit of both. Interesting. Yeah, I don't really do. I don't. I just started doing a lot more in my show, as you saw just a couple nights ago, where there's kind of a retrospective part of my family and my career, and I go back to being in how I got into comedy and how
Yeah.
people inspired me, certain
So that's a
comedians.
recent kind of addition.
Yeah, because I started becoming a little bit more comfortable on stage just telling a story. I was always Carrot Top, and it had to be like you were saying, watching me on the Tonight Show or any other show. They would say, no, just the props. And I said, well, I have this really fun story about on a plane or whatever, and they would say, that's not what people, they tune in to see you with all the gags. So it would take other things like this, or I remember doing like the Charlie Rose show, one of those kind of things where you just sat at a desk and people were just blown away, like like a Larry King kind of style show where they would say, "Well, I never seen Carrot Top talk." They just see you in this crazy stage with all the gadgets, but it was fun to show behind the scenes.
Is it one of those? Because I get this on the other side, which is like people who are into rock stars really don't want to know that the rock star's a nerd.
Right.
They want to stick with the
Right,
image.
right, yeah.
Is it because most people really aren't that interested in a comic's inner life?
I don't know.
Or has there been a part of you that's been reluctant to share your inner life?
Again, going back to it wasn't reluctancy as much as it was just not being comfortable and to share it. But I do a lot of things in the show now that are just quick one-liner references that people are kind of like, huh? Like I'm kind of a mystery to people. I've never been in trouble. The night's young, but I've never had anything like, it's just who is, it's almost a good name for the documentary. Like who the really is Carrot Top? Because no one knows.
Well,
no one knows me.
Let me add my piece of kindling to that fire.
Okay.
I always found you interesting, but to me, and because it's a generational thing, you being 59, me being 57, you're always kind of there, but kind of over there. I'm in music, and like I'm sure you are. It's like you get very focused in your world.
Sure.
And so before I walked through the door the other night to see you play at the Luxor, I had one version of you, right? And it wasn't good or bad. It was, I'm at the show, so obviously it's positive.
Yeah.
But that version of you is so small to the version that I saw on stage.
Well, hopefully in a good way.
No, I was blown
I have
away.
one version too, and I don't like the version I have. Yeah. No, I appreciate that because I think honestly, and I only because I get it from people that come to the show.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing people always say when they come to the show, or they write on the thing, or they come or write me letters. They had more fun, and they say it to you, which it's funny. But I never liked you, but I love the show. Oh my God, I'm a huge fan now. My wife didn't want to come, but we reluctantly I drug her, and oh my God, tell her, oh my God, it was the best. I don't know why I've never liked you. And then they come and they see the show, and they're like, this is nothing what I thought it would be. So it's a compliment. But it's like, how do you get that out to people that are haters of me? You just have to keep doing it.
I'm not trying to
Not
be like,
hater, but you know what I mean. Like, don't quite get what the whole thing. Even the comics that were friends of mine last night were like,
yeah,
Scott, you have a really, that's a really good thing you're like that's really polished, and it's stand up was
yeah,
like it's real stand up. I'm like, well,
yeah.
I'm a real stand up, like, but they don't think that.
Well, working backwards, I saw someone who's a master at his craft. So that blows me away because I just know how hard that is. You know, the
Right.
10,000 hours bit. It takes a lot of, like, if you remember when I came back, I was asking you about your pacing
Yes, yes.
because I saw you you
Right.
come out real hot,
Yep.
and I saw you turn the pacing down just like I would
Yeah.
play a slow
Yeah.
song in the
Yeah.
middle of a
There's
set.
a method
And
to
you
it.
were like, oh yeah, totally conscious. I
Yes.
was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. I saw this man, I saw you working. It's hard to explain. I'm not saying you're puppeting yourself, but
Yeah.
it requires a level of mastery to control what people see, and you're back here kind of pulling the
Sure.
levers.
Sure.
But the other thing I thought, and it was shocking to me, was not only did I have an overly small impression, and I don't mean small that I saw you as diminished. I mean, the version that I think of you now versus the version I walked through the door is like this to this, right?
Not a little bit bigger. Yeah, a little bigger.
But I also thought it was fascinating that here's this man in plain sight, 18 years at the Luxor, and yet the American public doesn't really understand how good you are at your job, and I thought that's really weird. I think it says more about our culture than it says about you, but on some level you must have contributed to it.
Yeah, the people that know, they know. That's why they come back. They're like,
Yeah,
this guy's good. People that, I sometimes just recently said, all the people that have been my fans, and I have the first timers. It's a lot of first timers, and it's awesome that we get newcomers that like, what is this Carrot Top thing?
yeah.
Because it's just been around for so long. They kind of, all right, fuck, we're here.
Do you feel because I certainly have a bit of this, do you feel like in your quest to seek recognition early that maybe you presented a hyper realized version of yourself that created an impression that wasn't false, but it wasn't as wide or as true as you are now?
Yeah.
Do you think you contributed to that?
Yeah.
Is that just pure ambition, or was it born of some level of insecurity?
Probably a little bit of both. Definitely insecurity.
Is it if I'm not this guy, they won't love me, or
Um, or yeah, to a degree, there's all that. I mean, that's what's weird about it. There's so many emotions and things that go through if over processing it too. Like, of course, there's the insecurities. I mean, you're a comic, you're insecure. I don't know how much the rock bands. I'm not in a rock band, but there's all those things you're thinking about, even all the way through the career. Forget the first time you're on, and even last night. Yeah, and you want it to be the best they have ever seen, because if they have seen the show, it's great. Or like before people, the meet and greet before we saw you 12 times, and man, the last time it's the best show. And so sure, you want to make sure it's they leave the property and they're like, man, he still got it, kind of thing, or
Yeah.
I mean, not like, oh, it's not as good as it used to be, or my opening act just a week ago was coming to the show, and he got I guess pulled over for speeding behind the stadium. And this cop pulled him over, and he said, you know why I pulled you? He said, no. He said, you're speeding. Where are you heading to? He said, I'm going to the Luxor. I have to go work. He says, what do you do at the Luxor? He says, I open for Carrot Top. And they said, the cop didn't miss a beat. He goes, Carrot Top? Jesus Christ, he's getting old, isn't he? And I'm like, see, don't, and then Rob, don't tell me that, because now that's all I'm thinking about
Yeah.
for the last week now.
Yeah.
Is that everyone looks at me, that's why I put it the show in, it's true. But a lot of it is real. Like I just had an interview, and I mean, it was just right after, like, not even like Joe Rogan. I don't think Joe Rogan said, when are you going to retire? So it was like just maybe a year ago or 9 months ago to the day. Mary Lou would know this
Yeah.
exactly.
Mary Lou Henner?
Mary Lou Henner would know exactly the date. She'd know exactly. It just someone said in an interview. I said, "Man, so how long are you gonna, you think you're gonna keep doing this?" And I said, "Oh, you got me for another hour, as long as." And he goes, "No, I mean like your career. How long do you think you're gonna go?" I'm like, "Well, retire." I mean, he's like, I said, "Do I look that bad?" And he's like, no. I'm like, well, why would you ask me that? Like,
Yeah.
you only ask people. You don't ask young
Yeah.
people. They get in the business. So how long are you gonna be in it? Like, it's my first year, my first album. So how long? Well, they probably ask them that though. I've seen interviews with Queen
Yeah.
where they ask Freddie Mercury, like, well, how long? They got one album, one song out, and they're like, well, how long do you think?
Yeah.
You're gonna take this? He's like, well, I hope God, I hope we got like 7 more albums. Yeah, I hope I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just all of a sudden, that's kind of what they're asking me. Like, so, how long do you think you can have this thing going? I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go until they won't let me go, or I'll go until I feel like I should
Well,
go. When I feel like I should go, I'll go.
I think the best is yet to come for you.
I feel that too. I've never had more fun and confidence in my career and my stage presence and personality and what I like to open up to the crowd with too. I mean, I say things now that people are like, holy, and they don't know how to take it. They do take it, but they're like, I think this guy's like being real with us. And I try to let them know it's like. A couple times in the show, I referenced to the crowd that I try to keep everything in the show real
Yeah.
because it's more fun to tell a story that's
Yeah.
real. Most comics, of course, I embellish some of them, but they're usually stuff that's happened that makes it like the interview guy when he can retire. It just makes it fun. The lady in the plane, it's like, I don't know who you are. I feel so bad. It's just that's what makes it fun. And I don't think there's been a more fun time in my career than where I'm at as far as writing and creating.
Am I right in assuming that you're the product of a happy home? Is that accurate or not?
My home now is very
No,
happy.
I mean your
When I grew up,
parents. Yeah.
my mom and dad split when I was like 13, so it was kind of a rough start. Of course, both my mom beyond loving and just she still is the sweetest woman in the world. She lives in Vegas. She's a stripper, but she's doing great. It's an old joke.
I was gonna
It's like
say,
a wooden pole. She's got splinters when she comes. So that's how old the bar is. But no, my dad was worked as a scientist at NASA. He wasn't the warmest guy, you should say. I do that in the show. I even talk about that in the show where I said my dad never hugged us. He never even
Yeah.
barely shook our hand. He was like a dude. And I'm this crazy eccentric. That's why I'm the black sheep of the family.
Maybe a slightly different question.
Yeah.
Maybe that's more what I'm after. Supportive.
To a degree. I mean, like when
Okay, so where didn't it work? Where didn't the support work? They didn't get you. They didn't understand you.
No, I think that. I mean, I think they got me. I mean, it was that I was definitely different. My brother was.
The word they used to use was precocious.
Well, I was actually a really quiet, shy kid. I was very literally.
So did you feel unseen?
No, not really unseen. No, I
Okay.
just, I just.
Testing my skills
Yeah,
as
no,
an
I like
interviewer.
that. No, I was just very quiet, never got in trouble, but I was the class clown, if that makes any sense. I was always the one that would tell a joke, but not to disrupt the class. It would just
Yeah.
be after the, school where I'd walk up to the teacher and I'd say, and they'd say, "God, you're funny." But I wasn't like blurting out things. It was just, "You're funny." So even when I was 12, 13, we'd have a bonfire on the beach, and these cops came out, and there was like 12, 13 of us, and the cop says, "You guys can't have a fire in the beach." And I said, "Where would you want to take us? Where should we take it? We're right next to water and sand. What's the safest place to have a fire?" And it just was funny. And my
Yeah.
friends were like, "You're witty, you're funny, you're observational." And
Yeah.
so I had that kind of thing in me. And that's when I started really watching a lot of stand-up and a lot of like Gallagher and Carlin, and then it was observational stuff that made me laugh. Any comic that would do something that you go,
I guess what
"Ah."
I'm after to
yeah.
to jump to the chase.
But family was but I think letting them know that I wanted to be into comedy. My mom was okay with it. My dad was completely not. I mean, he says,
Right.
like in the show, and he says, "It's not going to happen."
It's the classic psychoanalysis thing of like behind every clown, I'm using the word liberally. There's a sort of sorrow or have you ever heard that? I'm sure you must
Sure,
have.
no, a sad. I mean,
And I'm not.
No,
By the
but-
way, I don't see you as a sad person.
no, but as a young, I mean, there's always, you're good because you pull it out. So if you break it down, yes, I was a really skinny, redheaded, freckled kid that lived on a beach, and everyone else was, blonde hair, tan surfers, and I'm like this
Yeah.
redheaded, freckly, skinny
Can
kid.
I tell you? Can I tell you a funny thing?
Yes, please. Finally, please tell me something funny.
So I was dating someone who was Australian, And you know, the Australians have this thing where they shorten words. Do you know that
No,
phenomenon?
but
So now I'm doing Trump. Yeah, I'm doing you doing Trump.
Doing it.
Shorten the words.
I
Sorry.
keep my words real. They don't do little short words. I do long. I made words. No one had words.
And they were talking about a friend of theirs who was a redhead,
Yeah.
and they referred to this person as a ranga.
Ah, that's great.
And I go,
That's
"What's a
great.
ranga? Orangutan."
Yeah, orangutan. Yeah.
I was like, "Wow,
Wow.
that's stiff,
That's stiff. Yeah.
right?" And of course, there's the famous South Park episode
Yeah.
about redheads.
Yes, and gingers and soullessness.
Yeah.
And, yes.
So, is it born of being of this lot? Even the other day, I saw on social media you posted this thing. You were wearing a shirt like "Redheads
A
Unite."
club redhead or something.
Yeah, and you're
Someone
like,
gave
I
it
need,
to me.
I need to find more of you or something. Was the
Yeah, I need more. I need to find. Well, yeah, I need more members. Someone gave me the shirt, and I thought it was cute. Club redhead. Yeah, there's, I do a joke. We're running out of redheads, so there's no redheaded club. And if there is, just like 4 or 5 people that are miserable, hanging around. But yeah, going back to your that does. So I guess in a sense, it starts out you're not really a sad clown, but that's how you get. I got into to comedy and got into being self-deprecating because the minute someone would pick on me, I would already pick on me, and so they had no.
yeah.
They had, no, and that's great.
I read this book
It's
by,
the
I
great-
think it was Carrie Fisher's first book that was very successful.
Yeah.
And she talked about after being in Star Wars and being obviously famous and obviously the daughter of famous
Yeah, sure.
parents, she put on a bunch of weight. In the book, she explains that she would do this thing when she would walk into a room and people would, invariably look at her. Oh, it's Carrie Fisher. She'd say, "I know I'm fat."
Uh.
And I thought that was so, I got it. Like I instantly got it because I've done that as an artist.
Yeah.
So I was trying to understand, like,
That's interesting.
right? Because,
She's saying it before she knows they're all saying it.
yeah,
And it made her feel probably well, probably hurts her to have to say that. But
yeah,
I mean, I was just saying that last night, literally, with how these comics. I was talking about, I was always sometimes them, but not as much as the butt of the joke. And carrot top. And my friends were like, if anyone that's never seen your show is the one that probably. And I said, well, it's true. I mean, people that have seen the show, number one, and comics that know me that have done the show is what got me, through things like Carlin's and Gary Shandling's and people that like friends of mine. Bill Maher. I mean, he's a friend of mine that thinks I'm funny. George Carlin said, "You're funny." That would be. I lived with that instead of some guy saying I wasn't funny and sucked. I'm like George Carlin said I was great. Mel Brooks said I'm great, so it didn't matter that this guy in Nebraska on his computer.
So it
was
is
making fun
is
of
it
me.
a feeling
But it's
of-
still a sad. It's still a sadness. Is what I'm saying. So when she walks in the room and says, "Huh? Yeah, yes, I'm fat," it's kind of like she probably doesn't want to be fat, and she's sad that she has to say that. And that's where the pain comes in, and that's where,
but that's where the Harlequin thing is
Yes,
interesting.
indeed.
Because it's a tragic comic character.
Right.
It's not a tragic character. It's tragic comic.
Yeah.
It's converting, in an alchemical way, pain or displacement.
Right.
I use sometimes the a feeling of otherness.
Yeah.
Like, why am I different?
Right.
Like recently, I did a post about I have a birthmark. I don't know if you know. This goes all the way up my arm.
I saw your post.
Oh, thank you. So the thing went viral, blew my mind, because I saw a young woman who was a model and she has a birthmark on her face, and I commented on that, and somehow it got picked up, and you're in People magazine. It's like one of those weird American moments.
Right.
But what I was really speaking about was like, why am I at 57 still weirded out about having a birthmark? It's such a superficial thing. It obviously doesn't affect my ability to play the guitar.
No.
And why am I still in some sort of weird psychic pain about something that doesn't have anything to do with me? It's just I was just born that way. And obviously, our physical being and our sort of, let's call it our born personality, these inherited traits, it's what we do with them that makes us interesting or different. And I think you found a particular alchemy which is really unique. And that's why, repeating again, I had one version of you up until the other night, and then you just blew the doors off of every perception I had of you. And I realized that this is this far more vast being in there.
It would be weird to say if I have the same feeling about you or since I met
I
you.
appreciate that.
It's the same. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I appreciate that, even
No,
if it's not
no,
true.
no, no, I'm being stupid. I'm saying that's all right because I have this thing, where you're here and now you're here. You're still here and here.
All right.
You
Well,
didn't
to
change
feed the comic, I thought of you like this, and now I think of you like this.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Um, I love that you talk about Gallagher in
You
your
know,
show, and we don't have to go too deep into it
yeah,
because it's really people should see your show to really get the
right.
substance of it. But I thought it was really beautiful how you found this person that it was like maybe a north star for you. You want to just touch on that?
Well, I'll say it's crazy. I was 13, 14 years old, and this guy lived next door to me that was managing all these bands like Atlanta Rhythm Section and da da da. And
I saw them once.
Yeah, me too. And
Did you?
Yeah, when I was 13, he put me in a security T-shirt that
Me
said
too.
security. Seriously, isn't that
We
great?
saw them literally at the same age. It was when they were super huge.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. They was in
82.
Daytona Beach, and he said, "You're gonna do security." I'm like 13. I weighed 8 pounds, and
Were you
anyway.
Jack then? Or?
No, yeah, no, and no. I'm still not. I mean, I'm all right.
I think you're pretty jacked.
I'm okay for a comic, I guess I say. But anyway, so then one day he just says, I'm doing this comedian too, and I said, oh, I was writing. I was trying to study comedians on the Tonight Show and whatnot, and he said, this guy name's Gallagher. I said, you want to come to his show? So I went to his show.
You never heard of him before?
Never heard of him. Went to his show. My dad and I went. That's all true, and we went to it, and I met him. And that whole thing is kind of, I shook his hand, and the whole thing was, he says, I said, I want to be a comedian. He says, all right, well, come, you bring some jokes. Come back next time I see you, bring some jokes. So I went back, and I saw him, and he says, you got any jokes? And I said, I wrote a couple for you. And he says, you wrote me a joke? And I said, yeah. And I tell him the joke, and he's like, did you write that yourself? And he says, yeah. He says, that's great. And I kind of, at 13, I was thinking, I write for Gallagher, but I was telling my friends, like, I wrote a couple of jokes for this guy, So then I kind of kept going, and there was an open mic night at my college, and he was playing in Fort Lauderdale, and I went now, and he was blowing up. He was playing 6,000
Just
seat
like
arena.
in that formative period, 13 going into late
Right.
teens, are you watching every comedian
Yes.
you can watch it? Are you breaking them down
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an athlete breaks down tape?
Absolutely. Yep.
Were you even videotaping
Yep.
them? And
I have them in all VH tapes. My mom got me all the Brooks Brothers and everything from George Carlin to Bill Cosby to every comic that she could get a tape of, and I'd watch them and study them, literally study the timing and all that. And so then I went and saw Gallagher again when he was blowing like 7,000 seat thing. And
holy cow!
I went backstage, and he said, I said, I'm thinking about doing this thing at school. And he was like,
At this
oh,
point, does he
whatever.
know you a little bit, kind of thing?
Yeah, and more. Yeah, he's got, and I said, I'm trying to come up with a couple things. It's an open mic night, and he was like, well, what's some of your stuff? And I tell him. He's like, no, it's all right. It's pretty good. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the Tonight Show, and I call Gary. That's the guy who's managing him. I said, call Gary, and
How'd
they
you
were
get
living
on
in
the Tonight
Hawaii.
Show? Oh, this
Well,
is years later.
This is yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, I've been doing comedy there for a while, and I was telling them, hey, I'm doing comedy, and Gallagher's like, I saw him out. He's like, oh man, you're doing like clubs and
Oh, so this is later
Good for
in
you.
the timeline, yeah. Okay.
Right. So then I said, I'm on the Tonight Show, and he's like what? And they watched, and Gary's like, what the? That was insane. Like, it was, and Gallagher loved it. He was like, that you just great. And so we just became, I guess, I'd say pretty good friends. I mean, I would see him, and I'd call him and ask him his things and opinions. And then one day he got mad at me and said that he thought kind of our acts were a little too similar.
Uh-oh.
And I was like really bummed, because that's the number one thing that especially when I started, was to do your original stuff, because if you did anything remotely to stealing someone's, you're done. Especially going on the Tonight Show, right? People was like, what are you doing this joke? So it had to be your own stuff. And that's why I think all my stuff was it was stolen signs. My whole first Tonight Show was like, hey, neighborhood crime watch sign, how good is their crime watch if they're not watching their signs? I mean, it was like, no one's doing that. I had the bank too, but this.
Did you feel, so you felt his accusation?
Well, totally. And then what was interesting, we did finally make up before his death. He came back to my show like 9 nights in a row. Literally.
Wow.
and I'm
Why do you think that?
terrified
Why do you
because
think
he's
that is?
well, I don't know. He said he's all right. I mean, and he just sat right there. I mean, by the curtain and watched every night. And my manager, your buddy's back, and I'm like, oh my God, and I was just blown away that my mentor is right there watching
Wow,
me.
that's intense.
So intense, and I had a show that was like no other. Like last night, it was a show that was just it was just I'm on and I'm like I'm in that you're just dancing up there and everything's killing and I come off and he's like that was the worst show I've ever seen you do, that was horrible, and I was like oh my God, I thought he was kidding because it was the best show I've ever done. And he just told me, kind of critiqued me and said, just you got to change everything that you're doing, just completely just start a new act. And I remember just thinking, okay, thanks Gallagher. And then
You reminded me of. Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Finish
no,
your story.
no. And then, but then when he passed away, this is creepy. I think I had, in the making of this prop, 5, 6 years maybe. It was because some people back in the day would say, I saw your show, and I said, oh, you hit that watermelon, you ruined my husband's jacket, and I was like, they think I'm Gallagher, like and I used to say like he was he anyway, people would just because the sum of whatever, so enough people would say that. So when I'm in the front row, this guy's like, hey, when you hit the watermelon, give us a warning, right? And so I was like, I said, yeah,
Wow,
I think you're
that's
at the wrong show, right? And I'm like, I said, I don't hit the watermelon at the end till the end. You know that, you've seen the show. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and I hit cantaloupes now just because I want to make it different. And and I just thought,
more on brand with the coloring.
yes, more exactly.
Same age left.
Say yes, yes. And so I came up with this prop that was impossible to make. It was going to be a watermelon, and I was going to hit it, and it was going to explode, and it had it was like a NASA. Like my dad would have to make this thing, and my dad did make a couple of my props when he was alive, because they had involved engineering. But anyway, I finally get it done. It weighs like 5,000 pounds. I can barely get it into the theater. It's just over-engineered.
This is a watermelon gag.
Yeah, it's over-engineered to the point where it's almost still. It's a bomb. It's just this whole thing, literally. And I have to hit this mallet weighs as much as it's a 125-pound mallet, made of a tree and a whole thing, and I have to hit it right on the mark. And when I do, it's amazing. And I did it for a tribute to him.
Right.
But he wasn't dead yet.
Okay.
I'm doing this as I have this whole story about him and and then I say at the end, I don't even know I'm going to do it. I come out, it's a joke to put the belt, and I hit it, and the crowd's like goes nuts, right? Because it's like homage, and is the word I'm using for
Homage.
homage. So I did it one night, and everyone's like, that was incredible. I mean, that ending was really phenomenal. And I woke up the next morning and he passed away.
Oh my God.
One night after doing that. And literally my phone's blown up. Gallagher died, Gallagher died, Gallagher died. So I was like, oh, and then my manager's like, well, there goes the bit. And I'm like, well, no, now it is a tribute to him.
Yeah.
But it was weird because I wanted him to see it.
Did you keep doing the bit?
Oh, I did it. I do it now.
I just because it's a variant of that.
Right. I wanted him to see it.
But I didn't know,
though.
like, because you said it was this elaborate.
No, I wanted him to see it though,
I see.
the joke I would say that night, I said I can't wait. Gallagher's he's gonna either hug me or he's gonna sue me, and then he didn't get a chance to see it. But I really wanted him to see that because it was just a spectacular tribute to him. It took years in the making.
A couple things come to mind. One is there's this Buddhist parable, which is if you see a Buddha on the road, split him in half with an axe. Have you ever heard that?
No.
The
I
idea,
have a lot of Buddhas in my house.
Well, so you have some Buddhistic thing in there.
I mean, I have a lot of Buddhas around. I have a lot of weird stuff around my house, though.
I haven't been to your house yet.
That's right,
Yeah,
you haven't.
that's the key
Yes.
word. But the idea is that at some point the student needs to destroy the teacher. Right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Analogy there.
In my case, my teacher was my father. And I had this thing happen where I was going to see this therapist in the 90s, and one day I sit down in the chair, and she goes, well, you've done it. And you're like, done what? She goes, you've destroyed your father. My fame and my hegemonic domination at the moment had basically squished my father like a bug into the ground. And, part of that was the way he treated me up until I was successful. But then, it changed the nature of our relationship after, because, and I think that's kind of what you're hinting at. In essence, he gave you the inspiration, but at some point he rebelled that the student was outpacing the master. But that's life.
That is
That's Lion King.
beyond a super duper analogy, and it's also would reflect my father, as you just said, your father.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened with my father when he rejected me that I wanted to go into this business. He was like, no, he can't say no, but he was completely not, let's say, for it much. And I just did. I went on my own, and
But
I did it on my own. I
not to be
never came back.
but that's painful, right? Because
absolutely, because you want them to be supportive and behind you. And I used to do it in the show. My dad's like, "You're gonna get in a comedy." No, when I had done comedy, I said, "Dad, I just did. I did this show, and I just." He said, I was trying to drive home. He says, How'd you buy a truck?" And I said, "Well, I have literally three jobs when I was trying to do." College and three jobs and do these little comedy shows on, like, at a club or a bar, like anywhere they would have a coffee shop, they'd have them. And usually they would pay me with like a Walkman. That's how long ago this was, right? That was the gift. You get a Walkman. And I had like piles of Walkman. I would win these goddamn contests every week. And here's your Walkman. And then then I came a joke. I'd say, "Can you run with a Walkman?" I had, so I said to my dad, "Dad, I finally got paid." And my dad was like, "What are you talking about? For what?" I said, "Comedy. They paid me like $150 for a weekend."
Yeah.
And my dad was like, "To do comedy?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're not funny." But he wasn't being mean about it. He just said,
no, that's kind of mean.
Literally said, no, but he said it how my dad would say, "But you're not funny." I'm like, "No, I know." And I wasn't funny around my father. And I wasn't funny around, I was one of these, once he came to the show, I wish we had him on tape. He had no clue. No clue. He had no idea who I was. No clue.
I had the same experience. I don't want to talk
No,
about
but
it. It's your
and
time.
then he was, no, but so we know we have a lot of
experience.
similarities, and honestly.
Yeah.
Even
we're
though
both Pisces, so when we feel pretty deeply.
And you're 2 years younger than me, so yeah. We're in the same, we have that same, there's a lot going on with us.
I haven't.
I hate that I have to say I'm older than somebody. Fuck. I'm always the oldest.
Forever
I'm always
young.
the oldest
We're
one.
forever young.
Forever young.
Forever young.
Forever young.
I actually sang that to Bozo on a TV show.
Did you really?
I swear to God.
Oh, that's good.
But thank you for sharing that, because that's what I mean. It's like, I think it's so fascinating that someone that has shared so much of themselves, there's not a lot on your story. I mean, you touch on it in the show.
There isn't. That's why we really want the documentary to be it will be really the first time, naked with.
Naked
I'm
top.
not going to be naked, but I mean showing myself behind the curtain, whatever, just like.
I got it.
You know what I mean?
You're naked, you're jacked,
Yeah.
and there's just a carrot.
Just a carrot. Top this. That's the name of the special right there. There you go. Top this. We just thought of it.
I just want to traipse through this a little bit because I think the stuff's kind of fascinating.
Okay.
You show in your show the Star Search moment
Yeah,
where you lose. You got Ed McMahon. There you are.
Sheldon Carrot Top gets 3 1/4 stars.
Yeah.
It's a hard show. You had to do math, right? They don't now. They just say who won. Contestant 2 wins. Now back then, 2 1/4 stars, 3 1/3. I'm like, the f is a quarter more than the third? I didn't know.
I guess what I'm after is when let's call it, that was the cultural zeitgeist for a comedian at the time. Like, you entered the jet stream of like, here you are. Was that your kind of first announcement on national TV?
No, it wasn't Star Search. It wasn't the first one. It was just such a big, broad primetime show. I think I was on Comic Strip Live first, and then Sunday Comics was a prime show, and then that's why we were talking this last night going home about Star Search and some of the other ones that they have. A lot of comics that were on there were already established comics that were on Star Search. They were already doing
Oh, so
theaters and
it was a
clubs.
bit of a work, as we would say in wrestling.
Yeah, and I was I was in the heat that time, and people were like, you want to be in Star Search, and I was like, I grew up with that, so I was like, well, yeah, and they're like, well, you're gonna win it. I mean, everyone doesn't want to do it now because you're gonna do it. And I'm like, well, how am I? They're like, you're gonna win it. Like everyone was saying it. Like every comic was basically saying, well, Carrot Top's on it, so there goes that. And then I lose in the first round.
The guy you lost to,
Bob Zaney, he's a very funny comic.
Oh,
Still
so it was
does.
a comic thing.
Yep. Yeah, comics versus comics, and then Star Search.
I don't remember enough about the show. I remember.
It was comic versus comic or band versus
The only
band.
person I remember is Sam
Band
Harris. Remember he was
Yeah.
the hyperbolic singer.
Yes.
That's a sort of
Yeah.
foggy memory. Walk me, because it's different now, but in the 90s, what was the trajectory for the rising up through the ranks as a professional comic? Was a lot of ground war live shows, and then
yeah.
you get your national TV shots, and
I have mine's.
because you ended up also in the MTV Jets.
I say
too.
mine's interesting because I started out and then I was just clubs doing anything, and then I would do. I mean, it literally strip clubs, anything where they would have comedy, and then I started finally doing professional clubs. And there was a lot of clubs that wouldn't book me because I was Carrot Top. Like they wouldn't. The Punchline in Atlanta, the biggest club you could possibly play. Everyone played it from Seinfeld to Fox with it. You name the name. But I was already.
They would say, we don't want to book him.
No, they would. I know the guy right at the time. Ron D'Annunzio he invited me to his Christmas party, but he wouldn't book me
Because?
he liked me. He says, man, Scott, I love you. But I
But-
can't book you. No, I can't book your. And I said, why? And every comic would be like, you got to book Heath. And I finally was just like, okay. It was just like,
But
whatever.
what would he say specifically?
He just doesn't book for variety. I said, you picked Amazing Jonathan. What the he's a variety. Why would you book me?
Is that what they call it, variety?
Well, that's how they're specific. Yeah, right. They would say variety, where the magic guitar act or whatever. They'd say variety, in a nice way. Me, they'd say prop act, but So I would play the other club in Atlanta, and we would, we'd sell the club out, kill, da da da. And I was every year, Ron, can I play the Punchline? And he said, no. I said, okay, I'm playing there. I'm doing. It'll be good for you, and my name, I'll help all my friends are playing there. And then one night it was the Fox Theater in downtown Atlanta, and it was like a Wednesday night, and we sold out like I don't know what it was.
That's a big theater.
It's a
about
huge.
3,500.
Yeah,
I've played it.
Yes, and for a dumb, stupid comic,
That's big.
It was huge, and the band Widespread
I'm
Panic.
saying we were selling it as a rock band, so that gives you a sense.
No, I know. As I'm saying, for me, it was unbelievable, and it's in Atlanta, and I'm like, what do I do? I said, I don't know. I'll call Ron and just say, come see my show. Like, don't be a about not him booking me. And he didn't come. But it was fun to call him and say, hey, I'm at the Fox Theater on a Wednesday. I got some seats.
Well, at that point, he doesn't want to admit he's wrong.
Right. But we had the Widespread Panic, the band there. It was like, man, this is. But then I'm going way off. So I do that, then I go to the clubs, and NACA, there was a thing called NACA, National Association of College Activities, and I went to the regionals, and I did really good. I mean, I was killing it. Then they had the national one in Dallas, and I got accepted to do the national one, which was national. I mean, every college was there, and I went up.
So
and
you're playing every college? Or
well, no, I was
is
already
this the
playing
college
colleges.
bookers?
Yeah, bookers,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
The national college.
So
yeah.
this is where they all go to decide who they're going to book.
Right, who they buy and book. And so I'd already done the regionals and had all these schools, but then I'm here and I've got Auburn, Notre Dame, every college, UCLA, and I destroy. I don't know. I just the perfect spot. I had a 20-minute set, and it was just. I got lucky. I was killed, and I beat Harry Chapin's record of number of bookings in a day. And so I remember it was a big deal, and that's really what changed for me, because I had all these.
So it was more ground game.
It was good. Yeah, it was all ground game. Colleges, and I mean 2 a day. Cafeteria in the morning, arena at night. Cafeteria in the morning, arena at night.
Wow.
Homecoming, stadium in University of Florida, stadium in Tallahassee, stadium, right? And then it's like, I wasn't. They booked me for it, but I'm saying I play cafeteria, and then I'm playing a stadium in the same day.
Yeah.
And so
Is
and I'm
cafeteria
finally
comedy
making,
different
yeah,
than
oh
stadium?
yes, cafeteria comedy. I mean, it's some similarities to it, but
Like what gag
yeah,
doesn't
well,
work?
that's what actually is right. It is actually with intimacy with what I was doing back then more than I am now. It was the stadium was crazy hard, but I did great, but that's where I would have this ground. I'd have all this like almost like a word of mouth, like Carrot Top. It's kind of just like this Carrot Top's a thing, and then I started getting a lot of TV. So I would have everything from MTV to Regis and Kathy Lee to The Tonight Show, Arsenio Hall, you name it, whatever show it was. But I'm doing colleges and then I'm doing TV. So kids are saying, oh, we saw this Carrot Top guy at our school. And they're like, oh, I saw him, his grandmother, I saw him on Regis. So I had this, and then I had a show on the Cartoon Network. So it was like literally 8 to 80 was my audience any given
Yeah.
day. And then I got AT&T commercials, and that was like stupid big. I mean, it was like it didn't do anything except make me like famous in public.
Yeah, public
Because he would
famous,
say, "Oh my God, the phone guy." They wouldn't
yeah.
even know I'm a comedian. They just know the phone guy.
Yeah, you're that guy.
They would even say, "What are you doing
I'm the rat in
in
the cage
Memphis?"
guy,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so
well, yeah, rat in the cage. Exactly.
That's what I get. You're the rat in the cage guy.
So that's what happened. So boom, 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 and then finally, and then we got Vegas, and then now it's just been this incredible journey the whole way. But up the ranks was I did my time. I definitely did all the
And
club
your
work and the
father's passed
things.
away. I'm not
Yeah.
crazy about that, right? At what point in that journey did he pass away? So at what
Oh,
point did he get to see your?
he definitely saw all the height.
Was he
You know,
surprised? Was he supportive?
very supportive. He called.
Did he come up? Did he come around to the other side and be like, "Oh God, you are funny"?
Yes, absolutely.
Did he get it? Did he eventually
Yeah.
kind of get the humor?
Oh, absolutely. And he
Did he start pitching bits?
no, I would call him and say, my dad was funny though. He was funny in a different way, dry way, but I would call him and say, I need you to make this prop. Could you make this prop? And it was a hat it was a hat with these NASCARs that went around your head, kind of. I said, so you wear this if you can't go to the race, so you feel like you're at the race at home. And he made it, and it was brilliantly made and done. And so he was very involved at the end, and he got into, my dad doesn't even know, I don't know what social media. He's like, there's some kind of thing called Facebook or something. And I got a page on there, and he called himself Pop Top. So he was very proud of me. And Pop Top was hilarious. And the people would, text him on the thing and say, I saw your son at so-and-so. My dad would, they would defend me too. These people are saying rotten stuff about you. I'm like, Dad, I told you not to get a Facebook page.
Yeah.
They're saying you're gay, that you do drugs. I'm like, Dad, just don't get rid of the page. People are going to say anything. They're going to say rotten, but why are they saying these horrible things? I'm like, one day he actually said to me, do you do drugs? I said, no. What? Dad, first of all, I go to the gym every day. I run every day. It doesn't mean you can't do drugs. I'm like, you'd have to be a pretty good athlete to go to the gym and run every day and still do blow. So, no, I don't do drugs, Dad. People are saying all these things. I said, yeah. It's show business, man, right? When they start talking shit on you, you've made it.
There is a truth to that.
Kind of.
I said this thing the other day where people they do this weird thing where they talk about the point at which they thought you reached the highest point of accomplishment. And then they compare you to where they think you are now.
Oh, no.
As if you're living in the shadow of
Oh,
your
no,
own accomplishment.
of your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible. Well, I mean, but
As I said, we
you're
were doing
still
like a
jamming.
VIP
I saw
with,
you at your show that night. You're jamming it.
Oh, thank you.
No, but that's not the same to say it. Like I just saw it.
Thank you.
So you're still your shadows is there's no shadow of you.
Yeah. Well, what I like to say is, even if people are right, because I'm always willing to accept that people are right. Like, I don't need to fight them. If they think you're a shell of who you used to be, that's
Right.
I don't have time and
I
energy
kind
to
of
get
don't.
into arguing.
I kind of don't care.
Right. But what I like to tell those people is, like, at least there's something to compare something to.
Yeah.
I actually made something for you to argue about.
That's funny. That's good. That's a good way to put it.
I know you flashed the number the other day when I saw you, and probably by the time this airs, you'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000.
Somewhere near. We're getting near.
But
Lots of people have been to the show.
That's cumulative Vegas shows?
It's cumulative. I think of my career. I think we have.
So you're almost at 10,000 shows.
No, it's not. It's somewhere closer. Not to. We put that up one night because it was the reason we did that. And I'm close to, but not 10,000 yet. we did, it was a commute of my entire career, and then we looked up, it was like, my manager was like, it's not 10. I said, well, the reason we did that, because there was someone that just did that, and we did it as a joke.
Okay.
And then we kept it in the show.
Okay, so
So it was some guy that said,
so it's not a real number.
No, there is a real number, but it's
Yeah.
not 10,000. It's probably,
1,200.
No, not 1,200. It's probably closer to like 8 something, but
It's still a lot
yeah,
of shows.
yeah. But I do that, and when we have an inside joke with the crew every night, of course, naturally, because the number's the same number every night for a year, so like it hasn't changed. Like, I came to the show a year ago.
Now
It's the same.
I feel
It's
abused
still,
by
no,
the
still,
joke.
yeah, still not 10,000.
I was so proud of you. I was like, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, still, but it's a lot. And then the joke is that 4 of those were good, but still 10,000. So it's a good laugh.
I found in trying to research you, there's not a lot of critical review of your work, which is kind of weird, I think.
Really?
At least I didn't find it.
Well, I have one that's funny because people are afraid to write about me. They just don't.
Okay, explain that.
Okay. It might have changed now a little bit more, especially since I've been, I always say, I've been around so long now. I've been invited to the barbecue kind of thing. Okay, your family, you can go to the barbecue. When I played, I was just starting to get a little heat. I had played the Wiltern Theater out here in Los Angeles. And it was a big deal for, Carrots Up at the Wiltern. It was like...
It's 2,400 people.
Yeah, it was a big deal, I remember. And it was like, it was L.A., and we had like...
Cool deco building, old L.A.
Yeah, and we had some celebrities there. We had people that,
Can you remember who was there?
Jenna Elfman was one of them.
Very nice.
God, there's a whole bunch of them. I remember more now, but I remember, it was like real celebrities came to my show. And I was on MTV a lot then. I had a lot of TV stuff, so they were like, "Oh, Carrot doing." This guy writes from the L.A. Times a column about it, Carrot Top, and I have it framed in my house
Because?
because it was brilliantly written in this sense.
Brilliantly mean or brilliantly stupid or brilliantly
No.
praiseworthy?
It went on how horrible that it should have been.
Okay.
I can't even just. I'll send it to you. It's a nice piece. All the way, and I got so much from all my colleagues for saying I'm going to go to the Carrot Top show to see it. And you know what? Everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but he killed it, and I had a great time. And it's just I highlighted that part.
Stop there, because I've had this too. Why is
But back then it bothered me more than it would be today, probably.
But set aside yourself for a second, because I want to explore this, because we live in this weird world where we have to sort of process this information that most people don't have to process.
Right.
Why is a writer performatively posturing for who?
Right. Right.
Is he worried about what his critic friends are going to think at the Formosa?
Yes.
Right? What is that?
That is exactly what it is.
What is that?
That's why I don't know, but that's what he ended it. Yeah, I know this, and people will say, like, even this time where I'm at now, people will sometimes say that they just can't believe that
the
it's a good show.
qualifier or the asterisk.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just. And it's weird because it's not that you deserve the asterisk or did anything to get the asterisk. It's just like you just did the work. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there's something interesting about that, if you don't mind me indulging.
Please.
You. Number one, I had this experience recently where a guy interviewed me, and he was a former writer for Pitchfork, which is the infamously snarky music website, from Chicago. He told me this at the beginning, kind of saying, I used to work for Pitchfork, but I'm out of that, and I'm from Chicago. And he basically, he didn't say he was a huge fan, but he indicated before we started the interview that he thought positively of my work. Had a great interview. It was great. I thought it was a great interview. Half the article, I can't remember where it was, but it was somewhere big. It was like, like a magazine type of thing.
Right.
And it was, the publicist thought it would be a good look for me as, I'm sort of repairing my reputation, which is forever damaged or whatever. And the guy spent half the frickin' article apologizing for thinking highly of me. And I thought, this is so strange. Like, what are we doing here? I almost rather he just try to slit my throat. So let's explore that, because I think this gets to the heart of our conversation.
And you know what?
today.
Carrot Top, he's such a nice guy. I get that a lot too. I'm like, well, why not? You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
well, before you
Sure.
keep your thought though, because my cousin was at the show last night, and she reminded me of this, and it's just perfect for this right now. my friend, and I don't want to throw him under the bus because he is a dear friend of mine. But it's the funniest. If he was sitting right here, he'd say, "I did do that." So my cousin Patty gets Drew Carey's book. She loves Drew Carey in Cleveland. She's in Cleveland. She says, "I'm going to go get my book signed at a book signing from Drew Carey." So she gets her time in line. She puts the book down in front of Drew Carey. Now, I've known Drew Carey for 1,000 years. We're actually really good friends. And she says, "Oh, will you sign my book?" And he says, "Yeah, I'll sign his book." She goes, "Oh, my cousin's Carrot Top." And he looks up. He goes, "Scott, is your cousin?" And she goes, "Yeah. Do you think he's funny?" He said, Scott is the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. And he goes, "But do you think he's funny?" He said, "I said he was nice, didn't I?" Now, he might have been just being funny, but
He's
he was. But it was like, that's just an example of like, he didn't say you were funny. I'm like, he's a comic. He's with me. But of course, we've been friends, and he knows, and we know both love each other's work. But that I've had similar things where they do that. They write like that one I framed. He could not for the life of him just say, "Holy." It was just everything about the show that I did, and then he said, "I can't believe I'm going to get so much for saying this, but he killed it." I love Carrot Top's show, masterpiece.
Yeah. I'm taking my show back over here. Now it's my turn.
Okay, please.
I think it's this weird thing. It's a cultural war thing. And in a cultural war, there has to be winners and there has to be losers. So, because they can't praise them all, right? Because there would be no heat.
Right.
In
Right.
wrestling, there has to be baby faces and heels. So invariably, certain people in our culture, they turn us heel, or they make us the clown
Right.
to be kicked, because it somehow either fosters or illuminates the thing they want illuminated. Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, sure.
So what I always think, and I'm not trying to put this thought on you, but I always think is like, why do I have to die for rock and roll? I mean, I love rock and roll.
Right.
I mean, I love it. It's my whole life is rock and roll. I mean, I gave my life to rock and roll, literally. I mean, most of my life has been spent on the road, in a studio. And of course, there's always a person, "Well, you got paid." And no, bro, there ain't no amount of money
Right.
that can pay for 18 years at the Luxor.
Yeah, I don't, but I never did. And that sounds weird, but I don't think just by knowing you briefly now, I don't think you got in to make money. You liked rock. I mean,
No, I wanted to meet chicks.
Well, you
But
want right. You want to meet chicks. But you want you want to
sure,
make music. But of course, that comes with that. You're going to get paid.
but it comes from
I
a place of passion, obviously.
absolutely. But I mean,
It's you
all the way
breaking down.
back,
It's you breaking down George Carlin tapes.
all the way back, right? All the way back then, I was like, I am famously known for not even getting my check at clubs back then. I would get up, pack up my, have a drink, find girls, dance with them, and leave the next day. And like, "You didn't pick up your check." I'm like, "Oh yeah." And I'm not just being cocky. I didn't think about, I never got paid back so when I started getting paid, and of course then it was like, okay, I'm not getting paid, but it's never been money.
So let me ask
why
you
would I
this:
still do
if
this?
you want to play the game of the thought, what sin have you committed on comedy that they feel the need to sort of throw you into the fire?
I don't think now. I think now it's gotten it's gone. It went from
Okay, but
I've done everything wrong to
okay. So what did you do wrong? What sin?
well,
What sin did you commit?
well, no, well, I think
Too funny.
well, yeah, you're funny and you draw crowds and you sell merchandise and they hate everything, but they don't like that you're on. They would ask Jay Leno. Literally, I was on a plane with Jay and he said, give me comments come out to me and ask me how come they always put you in the film. How come Carrot Top's always on the show? And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry you have to endure this." Because he would go to comedy clubs and they all say, "How come Carrot Top's on every week?" And he'd say, "Do you know what Jay would say to him? Because he brings the goods." And I said, "Oh, that's nice." He goes, "No, you do. You show up and you do your thing, and then it's great." And what?
Yeah,
I did the work, and
I sold tickets, mother.
right. I keep the viewer. They always say you keep the viewers. It's a whole big bullshit thing on television. I go on at 12:01, and everyone leaves the station. But when I would go on, if I was on, they would wait.
Oh, and they're looking at those
but you know what I mean? The
numbers. Yeah.
Nielsen. So it was. I Nielsen. That's why I get the ratings. But that's just all those little variables. But what did I actually do wrong? That's the whole funny part. And I used to kind of do a story when I started doing all the retrospective stuff in the show. I would say, when I started out doing comedy, I couldn't do. They wouldn't let me do strobe lights. They wouldn't let me have foggers. They wouldn't have music, and I had it all on a foot pedal like you have in your.
Yeah.
So I made a strobe light, a smoke machine, and a wind blower, and then there was a sound bite. And there was only one sound bite at the time. It was a Michael Jackson thing where it did oh, and I have it on a loop, and I would hit the blower with this foot, and I would hit the sound effect with this foot, and I would do this Michael Jackson thing. This is 35 years ago, and the comedy club owners were like, they loved it, but other comics would see it like, what is this?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the crowd loved it. And like, but why? I go to
Did
the
they
Tonight.
think you cheat? Okay.
No, well, they think that, yeah, they
Did you
think
think
either
you
cheated
cheated?
or that's not. It's not pure a purist.
What's
like
pure? Okay,
a
because I don't
purist.
understand the comedy. What's pure comedy?
A purist would be
You and a mic and some pathos.
absolutely. It's
you can do
Of course I do, but they don't see them doing, and they see it in the show now. But that's why people see me now. They're like, you are. They don't say Carlin, but you are a purist. The comics last night were like, you did 45 minutes of stand-up, and I'm like, yeah. You got to show that. And I'm like, they will see it eventually. I'm not worried about it. I just would like people to see it. But that's what a purist. So when I hit the scene, I was everything but that.
Right.
A comic has strobe lights and lasers and music, and now I have a video wall. Like, what is that? I'm like, that's called staying with the times. It's upgrading your show to modern day. People want to look and see and hear. I said that way back 40 years ago when I started.
Makes sense.
I said show and tell with liquor. That's what I am. You go to a comedy club and I got
sponsored
I
by
got
Crown.
to
Is
show
that why
you.
that's part of the
yeah,
show?
yeah, kind of.
Kinda or no?
No, they used to give me a lot of the free product. I never got money from them, but they gave me booze.
I would be remiss to not ask you about performing in Vegas. I think you told me you do 6 shows a week for 3 weeks and then you take a week off.
Yeah.
How do you not go completely insane being in Vegas for extended periods of
Well,
time?
because I live in a normal life there. I have a house, and I just go in the back door and go home. I don't go party. I don't go to the Strip. I have my little backstage where that's my big. Do the show, have a drink, chat with some folks, and then head home. And next morning, wake up, go to lunch, go to the gym, go to the show.
So you like living in that climate? And
Yeah, it's a normal neighborhood, just normal. It's just a normal. People are always shocked. Do you live in Vegas? I'm like, yeah. They have like an Albertsons. They have an Albertsons there, yes. Yeah.
But what do you in your free time? Because you obviously have a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't, but
When I'm working
okay.
during
So
the day, it's not really too. It goes
I can
by.
tell you what I'm doing in a given day, but
Well,
like,
it goes by pretty. Like I said, pretty fast. I'll wake up.
when do you normally wake up?
I wake up. Well, it depends. Usually 9. Well, I don't go to bed that late, so I get up at 9. I water all my own flowers. I blow my yard, the leaves and everything. I'd kind of make the place look good, and then I go to lunch. And then I go to the gym, and then I usually go grab a little coffee somewhere and kind of just get my head together for the.
Start to
Yeah,
zero in on the
because
night.
it's already by 4 o'clock you already got to go and do sound check and everything and a meet and greet like you do. I actually do, believe it, for a comic I actually do sound check because you just got to get warmed up and and we always play rock and roll and that's and then
So
the show.
you're getting in the zone starts when on the day?
Usually, right? That's what's weird about our business is you're always in that. It's like I don't know of anyone, or I don't. Well, I do a few that just do whatever, and then they go, "Oh, I gotta go," and they walk in right when the show's, and they go on stage. I'm like,
That was that was the famous thing on Jackie Gleason. Didn't rehearse.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Larry King told this amazing story because he was friends with Gleason during the honeymooners time, and he's literally on the side stage where Jackie would walk through the door, and Jackie's just chatting. I'm like blah 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 blah, and then he hears it's his cue and be like, "I'll be right back."
Jeez.
Walks through the door, goes out and kills. Hasn't rehearsed with the cast at all. Walks back through the door, closes the door, and picks up the conversation.
Jesus.
And you believe it with the guy.
Yeah, Gleason Jack. He's
I wish I was that guy.
Yeah,
and
no
I'm sure maybe you wish you were that.
Of course, although I don't mind being the other guy, but
No, it's
But
fine.
I get excited to go into work, and I get excited to, I always say it, like you were an actual rock star, but when I always say my friends like, dude, it's time to be a rock star, and we go out there and there's music and there's strobe lights and there's fog and there's this, and you're just in that element. It's like, and that's why I picked that going way back a minute ago about what rules did I break. I broke all the good ones, man, because I love having all those bells and whistles on stage. That's what makes me happy, and that's what makes the crowd like going to a stand-up comedy show. And there's smoke, and there's strobe lights, and there's the confetti. It's like you're at a rock concert,
Yeah.
and there's rock and roll blaring the whole night. The whole show is, you've seen, it's all music, and it's just bam, bam, and that's, you come off, you're like exhausted. But it's rock and roll. I know. I watch you on the side. I'm like, now that's rock and roll. We just kind of try to, we try to be it as much as we can.
It's a different thing to scream at the top of your lungs for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I watched you.
It's
It's
more.
amazing. It's
I
intense.
don't want to say what you do isn't primal, but it's more base primal.
Yeah, yeah,
You've got to come from the
yeah,
gut for
yeah.
you got to like go so outside
Yep.
your comfort zone. There's
Indeed.
nothing normal about screaming. You know what I mean?
No.
It's kind of weird and on cue, with no provocation.
Yeah.
No
Yep.
fight or flight. So
No.
it's just like, okay, here.
Right.
I do want to ask you before we end here. I'm like anything that's American institution. Vegas as an institution is sort of fascinating because and I think you do a great job in the show, sort of poking fun at, let's call it the bullshit that is Vegas. I mean, everybody knows, but you live it
Right.
on some level.
Sure.
And I like one of my favorite jokes that you told was like, and tell me if I did it wrong, but Circus Circus so bad they named it twice.
That's good. Yes.
Like, I love Circus Circus. I went there the other day by myself. In fact, before I came to see you play,
Did you really?
I was there by myself, like playing the sad games, and
Oh, that's great.
I'm just into all that weird.
That's good. No, I love that.
Last time I was there, like I went a couple years ago with my kids. In the there's that one movie where they filmed it in circus as James Bond or
Yes,
something,
yep.
and they have like clowns, and now it's just like totally sad people with the barrel for 30
Yeah,
minutes on
yeah.
the legs. They don't even like switch acts. You're like, oh my god, this is so out there.
Right. But yeah, it's fun, and that's what's great about it. Like you said, people are always like, oh my God, like, one, comics, like, we have the luxury of doing that kind of, as we pick on, like, I pick on the Luxor, and people are like, they let you do that? I'm like, well, they know I do it in a fun way. I don't
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that. I make a joke, I love this hotel. This is my favorite hotel
Yeah,
right
yeah.
here at the Luxor. Like, it's just, like, my hand for the answer. I mean, it's just a joke, but I have had people, we had a president of the hotel, Felix Rapport, who's a genius, went on to Foxwoods, he's been everywhere. He's just one of the best presidents of a hotel, knew how to do it, man, right, with entertainment. He would come to the show all the time. One night he comes to the show, and I had this dumb joke. They had just built New York, New York. And I think anyway, the joke was, I said, if do you go to New York, New York? I said, you got to go to New York, New York. You just leave here and you go through the Excalibur to get to New York. It's like going through Jersey to get to New York. And it's just a dumb joke, right? But it's funny because you have
Yeah.
to go here through Jersey to get
Yeah.
to New York, New York. And we played that song, ooh, that smell. Killed. I mean, it would kill. And one night he comes back out of the show, and he's like, Scott, no, he's never would ever, and never, ever. He's not even allowed to tell me. They can't. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't own my show.
Yeah.
I own my own show. I just rent the space from the Luxor in a sense. That's how I do
get it.
But they're not allowed to say what I can do content-wise, and I
They
try to
can't.
respectfully not do things that I think would be wrong. So, Circus Circus so bad they named it twice. That's a shithole. So we're saying 3 times. That's a shithole. Like that. Just fun.
Yeah.
Bellagio, it's a dump. I call it a dump. It's beautiful. Of course, they know it's a joke. So then anyway, he comes back. He's like, he says, oh man, I gotta ask you something. I said, oh, what do you want? What do you want? He says, we're getting a lot of people that are upset about, and it's only one little thing. I said, what? What are they upset about? He says, that joke you do about going through the Excalibur. I'm like, oh, going through Jersey to get to New York? He goes, yeah. I go, you want me to take it out? I'll take it out. He says, it's just a lot of the employees here, when they come to the show, they get their feelings hurt because you're, calling their hotel a piece of shit. And I'm like, and then, I said, yeah, but if you listen to the joke, Felix, at the end when I say it's a piece of shit, I said it's a nice piece of shit. And I really did. That was the joke how it ended. I go, it's a piece of shit. It's a nice piece of shit. And he said, you do say that. I said, yeah, I'll take it out. So that's the one thing in my entire life that, that someone asked me to take out, and I took it out respectfully because I thought, it's not a deal breaker, and it's one stupid joke.
Does the darkness of Vegas get to you at all? It's a dark place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a great place because
yeah. It's
it
only
creates
yeah.
it creates an atmosphere where someone like you can
Sure.
reach for these
But
type of
it's you know
stars.
we always say even as beloved as but everyone says it. We always say God only in Vegas. We see something
Sure.
or is experience something a show like only in Vegas. Like we had people that had to be thrown out of the show the other night because the guy was just beyond obnoxious, and it's like he was sitting right in the front with his 5 guys, and I wasn't even on yet. They were just already causing a problem, so they had to throw. The guy took his big $87 drink that he must have just bought, and threw it up on the stage, in disgust and anger.
Those props are expensive.
Yeah, but I'm like, and they're on the radios, oh, at home we're holding the show. And some guy's been throwing. Oh, fuck! He just threw a drink on the stage. I'm like, what? Who does that? Like, no one does that. I've never seen that, ever.
Oh, okay.
And it's just like we just sat back and we all said, only in Vegas, man. Like, you don't see people behave like this. And
Well, you do have a unique seat in that you see America as it probably really is. You get that cross
yeah,
section
we get
every night.
everybody from the different countries come. I mean,
Well, that's
even
that.
even
Yeah, I didn't
Louisiana,
even think
even
about that.
Louisiana comes.
Has it made you cynical to see America up close?
I mean, everyone has a little cynic in them. I mean, that's what drives the machine, right? Is all that, A little bit of my dad's in me. I'm a little sinister, a little myself, a little cynic, but yeah, not too much. You just kind of
It
just
doesn't
go.
seem to affect you, but I was
No,
wondering.
yeah,
You
it
must have
not
some
really does.
consciousness
Yeah,
of
I'm
it.
consciousness of it for sure.
Yeah.
But I've been very blessed. We've been there, Jesus, almost 30 years. And we just going back to again they just had an election. That's the thing I do in my show. Hey, we won, so we won first place, and it's like you can't put up there that I won first place because it's not funny.
Did
So
you win first place?
Yeah, so I make me get third because it's only funny if I
Oh,
get
so
third.
that's a
But I
bit.
actually but I got no, but yes, so I got first place in the weekly, which is more of a the hipster man, the weekly magazine in
Sure.
Vegas. It's all the hipsters, and.
Trust me, I know all about the hipster
And
world.
then so we got first place. And then we got third place in the USA Today, which is a general poll, right? It's a broad.
Sure.
So then we just won like 2 days ago the paper.
Okay.
So there's first when I'm like, so the bit in the show is I just leave it at third because it's not funny if I win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to say, hey, we got third. Yeah. But people in Vegas have been very nice to me, and the support is unbelievable.
Okay. My last bit here.
Yeah. Gotta hope I make it through it.
I had this impression the other night, and it does kind of dovetail with my thought about you as Harlequin. I thought, and it was a weird impression, because again, I'm having this kind of moment where I'm watching you thinking, wow, this guy's really got chops like everywhere, left and right. I found myself laughing about bits you were doing between the bits. Like you do your bits, and then there's like little bits.
More people, and I mean this, and I don't even know what the hell. Everyone says that to me, and I swear, I'm even trying to even be conscious of what the hell people are talking. They say and then the mumbling stuff. I said I don't even know I'm mumbling. They say you do the bit and then you do this thing, and I'm like, but what is the thing? So can you remember what was there in particular?
It's like little. It's
I
like
don't even
little
know.
aside. It's almost like you're talking to yourself.
All right, okay, but I don't conscious.
You did the puffy baby oil
right,
joke.
Yeah.
You want to explain the bit, or you want to skip that?
Yeah, I know it's fine. It's a backpack for P Diddy. It's a big oversized baby oil backpack.
Yeah. And then you as you're putting it down.
Oh,
and
then
you go too soon.
Oh right, yeah. There's little things that I kind of mumble on my.
But I found myself the next day laughing about the bits between the bits.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say so.
And
I
your
got to make sure I keep doing that.
Your Trump is something else.
It's fabulous. It's great. Yeah, no, it's stupid. It's stupid because it started out. I can't. I couldn't.
Now you're gonna do it. It's
no,
too
right.
funny.
I couldn't do it. Right. And now I just. And when you're sitting, that's the best part. When you're sitting like this is the perfect time because it's only when you're sitting like this, right? And it's just become. It's one of those things. It's not even picking on him. If you saw the show, I don't even pick on him. I just do. You pick a topic. I just say. You say. Just pick and just say something random.
You mean right now?
Yeah, right now. Any
Dick Cheney.
I made Dick Cheney. There was never Dick Cheney before me. Dick Cheney never existed. It's when you just say anything. Anything he said.
Wasn't I the person that
No,
told you
bottled
that
water.
that he
Bottled
doesn't
water.
have
When people drink out of hoses, I made bottled water. I'm the first administration to make bottled water. I mean, it's just so dumb.
Do you know how he doesn't have
And
a
I'm not even
heartbeat?
making fun of him. I'm just making fun of the character.
But you know Dick Cheney doesn't have a heartbeat. Do you know that?
Yes, you told me this.
See?
Yeah, you did. I did.
You got to do
I,
it. See, now you got to do it.
Now, Dick Cheney.
Yeah, he doesn't have a heart.
Dick Cheney doesn't have a. He doesn't. Not only not a heart. He doesn't even have a heartbeat. I mean, he has no heart. Yeah.
Okay, my last little riff here is I pile psychologically on top of your.
I should have done my hair for this.
There
thing.
you go.
God
There
damn
you
it.
But I had this interesting revelation during it, and again, I'm sort of sitting there like dealing with the three-dimensional version of what you actually do, as opposed to my poor latent impression. And I thought this guy would make a great Shakespearean actor. Did you ever really? I know you've done some movies and stuff, but you're probably doing you. But I mean, did you ever think about acting?
Yes, I've definitely.
I think
I
you
know.
could
I
be
love
a
it.
great actor.
I
I don't
actually.
know what it is. By the way, when I say great actor, I was like, this guy should be a Shakespearean actor.
Oh, I don't know about that. Well,
No,
you're very
I'm
sweet.
I'm dead serious.
Oh,
You've got like weird skill sets I didn't know you had.
Well, I think everyone. Well, not everyone. I think a lot of people. I do, especially because I do what I do is so dumb and over the top stupid. But then I always want to be that serious guy. Like I've always wanted to be in a movie where I could just be cool. Like
Remember when Jerry Lewis did Was a King of Comedy?
Yeah, King Comedy.
Like I think you got that. I think you should look at that. I'm pushing you, but
no, but I did. I've done a couple things. Where people were like, "That's pretty good." Like, I'm not. I would say, I'm not a trained actor, but I think every comic can kind of, to a degree, act a little bit. But I've always wanted to have that. I did one movie that's not come out yet where I played again. I'm like, I don't want it to be like the Joker because it looked, I'm trying to be, me with blood all over me is automatically I'm Joaquin Phoenix. I don't want to, so I made sure they knew I'm like this clown, but I don't want to be.
I see.
I don't want to rip off that.
I get you.
So they said, okay, you're gonna be this like crazy dude, and I am like literally just like a drug dealer.
Is this a big budget or small budget?
Small, but I get to play. And I get killed. I'm covered in blood. The guys, but I'm acting like a real actor. It was so much fun at the end of the day. And they were like, that was great. And I said, it was great. It was just I got a chance to not be Carrot Top. Like it was like just being Scott. It was cool. I had.
Well, I can only encourage you in that because I saw it somewhere in one of your mumbly bits. I
was this close to being in a movie with Nick Cage's dear friend of mine lives in Vegas, and he
I know Nick from his Lisa Marie days.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he says we'd hang out all the time. He says, he's like, you'd be a good actor, right? So, brah, hey man, you'd be a good actor. So I'm like, yeah, I guess I'd read lines with him sometimes, but he's like, no man, you're good. I got this movie, man, and it was great. And we never did it, but I got to play exactly what I just described. I'm this drug dealer, and I can pick whatever. I don't have to be me at all. I can be shaved head. I can be shirtless. I could whatever. They wanted me to have a little bit of muscle because I'm like this crazy, strung out drug addict. But the script was just like, oh my God, I want to do this, man. But it might come one day, that kind of role, that kind of movie, because it would be fun to jump into it.
I get it. That's all I can say. And I would highly recommend anybody go see you where you're playing because I laughed for 90 minutes straight, and I can't think of the last time I laughed like that.
That's very sweet.
The only other person who's made me laugh as much as you was Dice.
Yeah, Dice. Hey, Dice is good. I love Dice. Dice is one of those guys you think would hate me, right? Just because. Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm just saying, or at least maybe I'm thinking this too strongly, because back then when everyone were just out to get me, I did this Gene Simmons roast. And
they're out. There's that Guns N' Roses song. They're out to get me.
They're out to get me. Yeah, indeed. I'm on this.
There's the start of your documentary.
Yeah.
If they'll license it to you.
Yeah. Like that. I had a TV show called Toys in the Attic, and I asked Steven Tyler if that. He's like, yeah, man. Do it, but we never came to tuition. But the roasters, because you've been Dice, so and they told me I'm on the dais and I'm.
This is Dice's roast.
No, I don't know he's there. It's.
But you're doing a roast, or-
I'm on the dais roasting Gene Simmons. We're
Okay.
all, and it was everybody. I mean, it was how they are, all the celebrities and da da da. And I think Danny Partridge, whatever his name was under there. Now I've been friends with him forever. He has a radio show, and he's a really cool dude.
Oh, Danny Bonaducci.
Bonaducci. So he's there, and whatever, and everyone's with me because that's how you do it on roast, right? Finally get up, I'm like, Jesus Christ, they're not roasting me. We're roasting Gene Simmons. What the? Take it easy, right? Everybody was just going on and on and on. And I said, and you, and Dan, you of all people, Danny, I said, look, this is what you would look like if you took care of yourself. He was like, he was in rehab at the time, and just all up and fat and bald. And I said, and because he was making fun of me, so it's my turn. I'm like, and by the way, but so why did I do that? I'm getting by the end. They said we have a special guest.
Uh-oh.
And the back of the door, not even on the behind the dais, the door's open. He comes through the crowd, did this cigarette, the whole 9 yards, and I'm like, oh God,
I'm gonna get murdered.
Murdered. And he comes
Stop
up
real
and he
quick.
goes, look,
He's funny.
well, absolutely.
He's funny at a
Oh no, he
crazy level.
looks up and he goes, what the what the
That's a good.
like
impression.
literally.
That's a good impression.
Is this? Where is there a celebrity? Right?
Nice,
And all of a
nice.
sudden he looks right at me and he goes, and Carrot Top, right? And I'm like, here goes. Is the only celebrity in this dais. This literally, I'm talking about a love fest. I'm like, what? Like,
I love you, Doug.
oh, he was just like, this has a show in Vegas for 30 years. You got nothing. This guy's worth $80 million. Carrot Top. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. Great. And now we're best friends. I mean, we call each other all the time. He's like, you gotta do this gig. I got this guy in Florida. I'm like, I can't do it, Dice. I gotta bring all my
I have a
shit.
tea house in Chicago called Madame Susan's, which is where this is from.
Nice.
But I'm trying to beg Dice through friends
Yeah,
to come do the tea
he'll
house.
do it.
But he won't. No, he won't do
He
it.
won't?
He said no.
No.
He only works with one guy in Chicago who I actually know, but he's more on the south side of the city. He flies in, does the gig splits.
Yeah, I knew
And
that
I was
part.
like, he could do 2 nights.
He won't do it.
No, so I'll let you beg him.
I'm gonna have a talk with him. I'm telling him. I'm serious. I'm gonna say I just
actually
finished the podcast with Billy. Go do his tea house.
I got married to my longtime partner last year, and at one point I flirted out paying Dice to do the wedding, and everyone, like, you could see them with the wheels turning. You know what I mean? Like, imagine you're married, everyone's there, families, and then you give Dice the mic.
Oh God.
Right?
Right.
It's like people's palms
No,
start
just
sweating.
just breathe. Oh God, great with
This
that.
guy, you know
How
what I
great
mean?
would that be?
So we'll let Dice have the
Yeah.
last word.
God, I
Anyway,
hope he
thank you
does
for
it.
doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for being.
I hope it wasn't too
No.
psychobabbly-ish.
No, this is one. I'm not making this up. This is one of the only podcasts that I learned something.
Thank you, brother.
You're
That was so
very
great.
welcome.
Thank you.